Welcome back, or welcome to the Rebel Tech Podcast. I'm your host today, David Dunmoyer, co-hosting with my colleague, Zach Whiting. This is a Rebel Tech Podcast where we discuss all the different promises and perils of emerging technology, artificial intelligence. And Zach, you've been gallivanting the metaverse for the last couple of episodes, so it's good to have you back on the show.
Yeah, I've been on a brief hiatus, but glad to be back here in the studio with you.
Yeah. Well, so today we're excited not only because we have both co-hosts of the Rebel Tech Podcast, but we have a great Texas patriot and leader on so many crucial policy reforms in Texas, and Senator Tan Parker. So, Senator, you are the first senator on the show today, and that is by design. So thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to join us.
Well, what an honor to be here. I'm excited about the new podcast, and you guys do so much good work. So it's a real treat for me to be with you. So thank you so much.
So I just wanted to start here. You know, you've been working in the tech policy space. You're one of the great leaders in the legislature. I think the leader in the Senate. What is it that sort of galvanized you to take such a leading role on tech policy issues?
Well, look, I just believe fundamentally that Texas has to lead on every policy area, guys, right? Mm-hmm. That's my fundamental thesis, is that the future of America depends on a strong, bright red Texas that stands up, that executes better on every field of endeavor, right? Whether or not we're talking about any kind of liberty or freedom issue, or whether or not we're talking about maximizing innovation, which is really what this is all about. I want to maximize the benefit of AI for innovation purposes that strengthens our economy, creates more jobs and opportunities. But at the same time, we have to address the downside, right? We have very severe and significant downside issues with AI, unlike really any other field of human endeavor. I'm, as you all know, very much a limited government, conservative, Republican in every way. I want to minimize regulation whenever possible. But this is a field that is just very unique, that the downside consequences of not regulating in a lot of these areas dealing with AI are so severe that it would be a dereliction of my duty as the North Texas senator to not address these issues. Mm-hmm. And so as a result of that, that's the reason why I take these issues very seriously. That's why I wanted to drive it. That's why I carried legislation with my colleague in the House, Representative Capriglione, last session, to be able to study thoughtfully and thoroughly all the issues pertaining to AI, all the opportunities, as well as all the downside. Now, let me say this. We'll do everything in a Texas-friendly way, right? Mm-hmm. We will continue to be the state, I want everybody to be very clear, where business comes to do business here in Texas. We want to be open for business. We want to be the number one leading state in America in all things, including this. But we just got to be intelligent about the way we look at it, the way we approach it, and the way that we regulate it going forward. And so as a result of all of that, I wanted to get involved. I've been involved in a lot of other technology policy over the years, dating back to my years in the House on all kinds of things that were creative and innovative, be it medical technology or whether or not we're dealing with other kinds of breakthroughs in technology on blockchain or whatever it may be over the years, digital assets, all those things. And so, again, I just think it's incumbent on us to lead, and that's why I wanted to tackle the issue.
Yeah. You know, I'd be remiss not to mention that we have, of course, a current senator and a former senator. One thing I've learned interacting with great folks such as yourself and Zach, who's also a great person, y'all are covering so many issues every session and during the interim. And I think it's worth underscoring that part of the reason why the Texas policy landscape on tech is so superb is because we have folks like you, and we've had Chairman Giovanni Capriglione on the show as well, who understand the technology and these issues. Before we kind of get into the whole House Bill 2060 landscape and all those issues, how is it that you're able to develop such good competency on the broad scope of issues that is tech while still dealing with some of the leadership on property taxes and protecting our kids? How do you find the time, and how are you getting so well read on these tech issues?
Well, look, that's great question as well. Look, from my perspective, you know, we obviously have thousands of issues that come our way, right? Mm-hmm. Thousands of bills and thousands of issues. And for me, professionally, I've spent time in the tech world. Mm-hmm. I was an executive with a company called Computer Sciences for many years. In their financial services group. I've been involved in startups, if you will, of technologies of different kinds, particularly a lot of medical technologies, but other kinds as well. And so as a result of that, I've always had a natural aptitude, if you will. Sure. But beyond that, I just feel like, you know, technology is an incredibly important topic to our economy and our future. It affects all of us, all 30 million plus Texans. Mm-hmm. And we have to be serious about it. And we've got to get into the issues to do them justice.
Yeah.
And so as a result of that, that's why I've been tackling these things over the years. Again, Texas must lead. I come back to that, right? On every topic, Texas must lead. So that means putting men and women in the room that understand the issues, that get up to speed, and can be conversational.
Yep.
Right?
It's 20% of Texas GDP is attributed to that tech landscape. And it's, again, by design, because the Texas ethos, the policy, and all that goes into it. Okay, so rather than take the 50 different directions with tech policy, you mentioned House Bill 2060, the Artificial Intelligence Advisory Council. I'd love for you to kind of map out for our listeners, what was the thought process behind that? And, what is that whole process looking like after that bill became law?
Well, again, just to kind of said a moment ago, we needed to focus on this issue. We needed to bring some focus to it, get serious. And I thought the best way to do so, Representative Capriglione and I, in talking about it regularly, was that we'd actually pass a piece of legislation that ensured that we would tackle it intelligently. And let me say this, really kind of fitting back to this question that you just asked about this House bill, but also specific to how we balance and address so many issues. And that is all the things I've been so fortunate over the years to lead for Texas, so many great pieces of legislation and so forth. The greatest wins historically have come when you bring all the stakeholders to the table, when you really study issues thoughtfully and fully. And that's what this is really all about. And so I always believe that this kind of model, to go and study things thoroughly, which is what 2060 is all about, makes all the difference, because you flesh out all the issues. When you don't do that, you run into issues in session a whole lot more frequently, the things that surprise you at the last minute. You got a bill up the next day on the Senate floor or the House floor, and it's been quiet, and all of a sudden you got 25 groups that come out of the woodwork, right? Because you didn't thoroughly do the homework. And so I think that's been one of the key successes for me, is balancing all of those bodies of work, all those topics and discussions as thoroughly as possible with all the stakeholders. And that's really what really breeds success. And that's why 2060 was so important, because it's the only way that we can ensure that we were going to do this in a thoughtful way, if that makes sense, when we were back in 2023 in the middle of session.
Yeah.
And I've only been here for 2 sessions, but I mean, that model works. It works here in Texas. It worked for me back in Iowa. And one of the first things I did was the blockchain work group that you were a part of. And that's a perfect example of that, where you get a lot of varying perspectives. And the day that I happened to testify, there was a group of moms there that had some concerns, about privacy matters. And again, that's just those areas that you may not see or recognize. And that's why the stakeholder process is so valuable.
Absolutely. Well, I carried the blockchain working group bill. I created it. It was the same model, right? So I ran with it as a House member back in the day, because I wanted to have this same kind of conversation. I wanted to bring all the stakeholders in the room. I want to take as long as it took throughout the interim period. That's why, the founders of the state recognized that the interim was to do this kind of serious work. People think, part-time legislature, you don't do anything for 18 months. Well, that's a joke, as you guys know.
Right.
I mean, we work constantly on policy. We work constantly on taking care of our constituencies. And so that's why you've got to go through this thoughtful work to be ready for January, right? So that's the model. And because I've done it with blockchain and digital assets, and creating, at that time, I think it was House Bill 64, I could be wrong on that, but that was the regulatory framework for dealing with all these digital assets. And as a result of that, that was really the template, coupled with the Blockchain Council, for why we wanted to tackle AI in this way with an advisory council, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. If I could, David, just to focus in on the advisory council for a minute, and it being an emphasis on how the state how state government uses automated technologies. And you for whenever this airs in the next week or two, but today there was a hearing, and one of the things that struck me that I think you in particular really drove home is, first, do no harm, and then second, there's a lot of talk about the processes, but then stepping back and looking at that it is people over process. And I thought that was a great point that you made. How for you and sort of the other members of the committee, what are some of the maybe agencies you've heard from, and are you getting a good sense that is what's being done in state government and how they're using AI right now?
Well, it's a great question. I mean, we've now, at this point in the process, we've had several hearings, as you know, since we started earlier in the year. And today we're really concluded going through all the major agencies. So we're really going to now take the next step in the process of discovery. But with regard to major agencies, we've really had all of them now come through and see us. And I am, very impressed by several of them and the level of preparation and awareness of these issues. I thought today, for example, here on June the 6th, I will tell you that from my perspective, I thought the Attorney General's office was exceptional today, and I thought DPS was exceptional. They both were very well prepared. And I'm not saying the other agencies weren't. The other agencies did a very good job. They were all good, did a good job. But I think those two in particular really had embraced it in very thoughtful ways. And frankly, it surprised me because they're agencies that typically would move more slowly with regard to technology, but they're moving forward, protecting all the privacy concerns, all the issues that are specific to their domain, right? Being in law enforcement or the courts and so forth, or the AG's office. But they were really moving forward thoughtfully on all the AI issues. And again, look, we've seen lots of agencies now. All of them today did a good job. But I think about previous meetings when TxDOT was there, for example, and I was taken back by what an excellent job they did and talking about all the different applications of AI to improve safety, to improve responsiveness, right? I mean, when we know now about roadblocks in various portions of the state, we're now going to be able to mitigate how those things were constructed, whatever minor defect there is there that's causing maybe a pattern to develop where there's more accidents or what have you. AI can help us resolve those things tremendously, which is very, very positive. So as a whole, I would tell you I'm very pleased with where all our agencies are with regard to the use of AI. Some of them need to take a slower posture, and I talk about that openly. But clearly, I'm very pleased with all of the agencies. There are a couple here and there that need a little bit more work. But I think by and large, they're doing very well, and we're well prepared, frankly, to come before the working group and to talk about what they're doing. And we're very visionary in many ways. So I'm very pleased.
Not at all to make this a comparison game, because you can't compare any state with Texas.
Yeah.
Texas will continue to win.
Yeah.
But I think it's worth mentioning, using the case study of California to explain why it's so crucial that Texas lead in state agency use of AI. We were doing some research for a couple of folks on the California Senate Bill 1047, which is their big omnibus bill. And if you read into the fine print, and there's been longstanding Office of Technology priorities for the state of California, and their goal is to create Cal Compute, which is not even hyperbolizing, this is almost a direct quote, enmeshing DEIA, diversity, equity, inclusion, accessibility, that was a new letter added to the acronym for me, into their state cloud computing system, using artificial intelligence in state agencies to incorporate that into the entire system. You juxtapose that with Texas, and you've highlighted this. It's the privacy components. It's how can we be more efficient for taxpayers, or to the point of TxDOT, detecting traffic or accidents so we have better response times. And it seems so intuitive that a state would focus on being responsive to taxpayers. But without your leadership and Chairman Capriglione's leadership on this, that isn't always the priority for certain state actors that don't have the same vision as freedom-loving Texans. So it's worth highlighting. And I guess by way of asking you, because part of this council, the goal is to create the digital code of ethics. And I know you've kind of mused on potential policy ideas. But at this stage, A, do you feel confident we're heading in the right direction as a state? And B, is there perhaps any policy worth considering to make sure we're further actualizing that?
Well, great questions. First of all, I mean, California is a disaster when it comes to public policy. God gave it a beautiful piece of land, but they've done everything in their power to destroy it. I mean, liberal.
We have two Californians in the room that can attest to that.
What can I say, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's the bureaucrats and that crazy radical left woke ideology that's driving what you just described.
Yeah.
Whereas here today, we're focused on efficiency for the taxpayer, really doing public service, right? How do I put bad guys behind bars? How do I prosecute appropriately? How do I make certain that children are getting the support they need through the AG's office, right? Through those cases around child support. Are we properly going after folks from an investigation perspective that are bad actors that need to be behind bars? One of the things that came out today was interesting. Our Department of Criminal Justice, TDCJ, we're talking specifically about the fact that 850 million minutes. Think about that. 850 million minutes of telephone conversations that they have to go and observe every year with a population of 133,000 inmates. My point is they're using AI intelligently. I was very pleased with what they were doing there. And when you see that, you recognize that our work here in Texas, the agency's work, the legislature's work, is all on real substance, on things that moves the needle. I mean, if you're not knowing what's going on with some of those conversations, you worry about safety with regard to your prison population, with regard to the outside world, just like if we're not properly going after deadbeat dads that aren't paying to protect their children and give them an opportunity to have a normal meal and a normal roof over their head, we're missing the boat. And so these are the reasons why government exists. We believe in a limited government that is functional and capable and solves the people's needs. And that's what we're trying to do here with regard to AI policy broadly and what we do in Texas. Intelligent, sensible policies that are pragmatic, that make a difference, right?
So I think what's helpful for folks that we talk to in the space of AI, because you've already mentioned this, the interim for technology, emerging tech, it is crazy, it's frenetic, there's a lot happening. There are also a lot of very channeled and specific avenues for addressing the 150 million questions about AI. So Lieutenant Governor had his interim charges, and Senate Business and Commerce is going to look at artificial intelligence broadly. You have Senate Criminal Justice looking at AI and deepfakes and so on. From your perspective, what are some of the, let's say, it doesn't have to be private sector, but industry-specific AI, either reforms, policies, or just questions that you're looking at this interim?
Look, I think we're on the right path, 100%. I think Texas is leading. I think when Texas does this right, the other 49 states will follow. Right. That's what I believe. Don't hold your breath for a federal government resolution to these issues. It's not going to happen anytime soon. So the states have to lead. We believe in federalism. I believe in federalism, right? When the states compete, American citizens are ultimately better off, right? They're the benefactor of that competition amongst the states. So, all of these different interim charges that you just referenced that the lieutenant governor's put in place are all excellent. They're focused on very targeted, specific areas. And we've, of course, been doing a review on all of it. We're going through all the agencies now. Then we'll go through public testimony. We'll bring all the corporate world in. We'll bring everybody who wants to talk about AI. We're going to get their testimony, right? And so I am very concerned. Let's talk about very things that keep me up at night. I'm very concerned about this deep fake issue. It is extraordinarily worrisome. The quality of these fakes is getting better every month, every week, every day. It's unbelievable the things that law enforcement officials are telling me and sharing with me. You also heard today the testimony from the Attorney General's office about the spike in all of these types of crimes. I mean, enormous increases in crimes.
500% since COVID?
500% since COVID, to be precise. Exactly right. I mean, what a troublesome figure to hear, okay? And so we have to address all these deep fakes. We don't have a second chance when it comes to protecting our babies and vulnerable populations. We have to get it right. And so these will be areas where we've got to put in place an intelligent regulatory framework to go after bad actors and be very clear. This will not be tolerated in Texas. Any of this kind of nonsense where, kids are being ridiculed, horrible things are happening. And of course, we know we're fighting the decline in our society. And we know we are fighting kids that are dealing with anxiety and depression at an unparalleled level because of the social media. They're spending too much time on these screens. We know all of that, okay? And so all those are areas of great concern for me specific to bad actors and taking advantage of children and vulnerable populations, our senior citizens, any of those folks that are having any kind of cognitive decline with an Alzheimer's or a dementia of any kind. You think about how bad actors can take advantage of them in horrific ways, not just with deep fakes that are visual, but deep fakes that are audio. The audio quality, the interaction level is now getting to be hard to distinguish between that which is traditional and real in our world versus this AI world. And so those are very real concerns for me. I'm very worried about what happens with regard to healthcare and underwriting, specifically of insurance policies for healthcare. A very big, grave concern for me in terms of protecting people and people being able to have access to a health, a medical policy for them and their families. Very big area of concern for me. I could go on and on about areas that really worry me, but these things in particular around deep fakes, we have to address it, have to be very aggressive, and it's broad. We have huge implications here with regard to human trafficking, right? Enormous. That's a whole nother, we could talk for hours on that topic, along with protecting our babies for hours and what we have to do there. And so I've been passionate about those kinds of issues all the years I've been blessed to be in the legislature. Back in 2009, I passed Jenna's Law, which was the first bill in the entire country to stop and work to be preventative on child sexual abuse. Today, it's in 35 states. Senator Cornyn's got out of the U.S. Senate. Now we're trying to get it out of the U.S. House to make it the law of the land nationally. But my point being is, I've been always passionate about the vulnerable and taking care of our children and these populations. And so the same thing applies in the AI world, right? And then, of course, the other big topic for me outside of those couple of specific things is where are we on privacy? How do we protect privacy? My God, I mean, this is very, very concerning in the world we're in. People have got to have privacy in their lives, and to not have privacy is absolutely unacceptable. As a kid, I had the great blessing in life of being mentored by Dick Armey, the great majority leader of the U.S. House. And Congressman Armey would always talk about fiscal discipline. But his biggest driver was about privacy and protecting the privacy of the American people. And so we have to address those issues. We also have to address in this AI world all these issues around bias. I'm very concerned about bias. We have bias that is horrific towards limited government, conservative Republicans like myself, and all of our conservative Republicans in the nation. We know that from a traditional media game perspective, that we never get a fair shake. We know that the media establishment has been attacking conservative Republicans and not giving us a fair shake now for decades. It's only going to accelerate with regard to the world of AI and bias broadly, as it pertains to any delivery channel, whatever it may be. So bias is a very, very big deal that we have to address and be serious about. And, outside of privacy and bias, you have all these issues broadly just with regard to security. And, how do I protect this state with almost 31 million people from all the cyber attacks that are going to come our way?
From hostile foreign actors.
From hostile foreign actors.
Within and without.
And you heard the Attorney General's comment on today from the Office of Attorney General. It was actually Leslie French that made that comment, that specifically these actors are both domestic and foreign that are attacking us, right? So we have all of these kinds of things to worry about today with regard to cyber, and obviously all the cyber attacks are integrally combined with all these AI challenges. We've got energy issues, right? All of these things all get connected ultimately in the end, but all of them concern me. And we just have to be thoughtful and go industry by industry and see where does it make sense to put in place some guardrails and where does it not? And so that's really how I would really phrase it or summarize what I'm talking about is, yes, always support innovation, but put guardrails in place when it's appropriate and necessary. And we can go on and on about all the different areas, but that gives you a few highlights on things that I'm particularly concerned with.
Well, we were chatting beforehand. We were like, we should ask the question, what are the civilizational implications of different technologies? You just laid that out perfectly. And it's sobering and it's macabre, but and you've already made the case for this, because we have the time during the interim and by design that we have a biennial legislature to really digest from all the hearings that you're chairing and all the different discussions of different committees. We as a state are going to be in a far better position come end of next session because the time and deliberation is being put in on the front end. As we, at a think tank, we have the blessing and privilege of researching these issues and trying to provide the intellectual ammunition. But these are some of the most daunting challenges that states and countries will perhaps face for the next 10, 15 years. And Zach, this morning you were testifying in Senate Criminal Justice on deepfakes too. I don't know if there's anything you want to add on that front as well from what you heard and saw.
Yeah, and I would just add too, real quick, kind of going back to what we discussed earlier about the robust stakeholder process. I think, for so long there's been this sort of resistance, understandably from business and industry about what direction we want to go, and I think it has reached this point of critical mass. As you said, on the privacy side of things, and here what we face here, that it cannot be said when we reach May of next year that the perspective of everyone was not taken into account, and some people, they like what you get, you don't like what you get, but the willingness of you and other lawmakers to continue to take a people first, privacy, consumer centric approach to things, I think is refreshing. Just on the privacy thing, I always think back to, I was in 8th grade math class when the first plane hit the World Trade Center.
Okay.
And you look at that sort of circular shift of how the concerns, sort of post-Patriot Act of privacy concerns by government actors, and now we have the real concerns about the privacy aspects with corporations, and the steps that you guys have taken to just focus on transparency, accountability, and those things. That's a game changer, and Texas has led on it, and others will follow.
Look, we must protect civil liberties in this country and this state. We have to do that. But we also obviously have to protect our people, right? You got to find that balance. And I think from all the public policy discussions we can talk about, this is about the most delicate and one of the most difficult, right? When you really get through all those issues and talk through it, finding that fine line, right? You talked about the Patriot Act. You talked about all the things that we've done as a country since 9/11 and so on and so forth. And you're exactly right. And I think one of the things that I've been trying to drive, and you saw that today in the hearing, and you just articulated it very well, which is, you've got to get business process properly structured first. You've got to have good processes before you layer on AI, right? And those processes need to be fundamentally focused on serving your constituent, right? Serving the people of Texas, the taxpayer, right? No matter whether or not we're talking about DPS or the AG's office, or we're talking about any other agency of government, the Texas Workforce Commission, whatever it may be, you've got to focus on people first. And so I think that's vitally important, and we've got to get that right. And I try to deliver that message today, I think, to some of our agencies about the necessity of doing that, right? At the end of the day, we can talk about all these technical data points. We can talk about all the different AI systems we got in place. We can talk about all the data center power we have supporting AI. But if it's not taking care of the customer, so to speak, the people of Texas, the citizen in Texas that pays the bill every day, that supports this government, then we miss the mark completely. And so that's what we're trying to be laser focused and really address in a meaningful way.
That point was made very clear today. One thing that I wanted to ask, I know we've talked about a lot of different things. We've focused on AI. We've talked about some of the sort of challenges and civilizational, sort of existential questions. What are some of the other areas of tech that you're just interested or excited about? Things like air mobility. We have a booming, private space industry. What are some of those other things that as you tackle, just tech issues broadly that just excite you?
Well, I mean, certainly a lot of exciting things in that regard, right? So air mobility is a big topic. I've carried legislation in that regard. As you know, the low altitude flight of tomorrow, effectively call it, a taxi in the air for the future, right? You think about that, all the autonomous vehicles. I mean, all that stuff is coming down the pike, right? Very quickly, very rapidly. And so Texas has a choice. We can do nothing and let all those opportunities for jobs and innovation pass us by, or we can engage. And I think the people of Texas, and frankly, the people of America, all 335 million Americans, are better when Texas engages and gets involved and shapes intelligent, pragmatic policies that are true to, one, our limited government belief, and two, our belief around free enterprise and the importance of providing support to see an environment where businesses want to invest capital, right? We want to be the place like no other place on planet Earth where people come to invest capital, to bring their dreams and their opportunities to create a new business, right? Be it a dream of a small business, to grow a big business, whatever it may be, we want to be that place. And so when it comes to all these issues, low altitude flight, autonomous vehicles, all these cool new technology opportunities we want to drive. Last week, I sat down with the UT system in healthcare all of the leaders in the healthcare space across the entire UT system. We did it at UT Southwestern. And so when I think about things that get me excited, think about using AI for good, for all the breakthroughs and discoveries that will improve the quality of life for human beings, specifically for Texans that are hurting or suffering, whether or not they're battling cancer, whether or not they're dealing with Alzheimer's, whether or not they're dealing with a chronic autoimmune condition, whatever it may be. Those are incredibly exciting times in June of 2024 to be alive and to know that AI can bring those kinds of things to the table that help improve the quality of life for real people. That's what excites me. But I never lose sight also of these the downside pieces that we've talked about, the things that we've got to be vigilant about, the fact that we have, yes, domestic actors that harbor ill will towards the United States. And let's be very candid. We have millions and millions of people that have come to this country the last 3 years illegally across our border that we don't know who they are. In a post 9/11 world, it is absolutely criminal. It should not be the case. This President Biden, has done a horrific job of protecting America. To me, it's an impeachable level of offense. When you think about all the millions of people that are here, we don't know who they are, that harbor nothing but ill will for the United States. These are not all people coming to work for a better life. There are people coming from every country on God's earth. We don't know who they are by the millions. And you see what happened in October in Israel. You see what's taking place. And so when I think about how we protect ourselves against foreign actors that want to do harm to the United States, we have to be serious about that and understand the cyber threat to Texas and address it intelligently. We also have to understand the critical infrastructure security issues. I carried the Lone Star Infrastructure Protection Act back in 2021, the first of its kind in America. And the reason being is we had to protect our critical water systems, our critical communication systems, and our electric grid. And when we talk about the electric grid today and what bad actors domestically or abroad can do as well, we have to think about infrastructure security. And so when I think about the next session in January, for me, it'll be heavily focused on infrastructure investment for Texas of all kinds, strengthening the workforce, strengthening, obviously, our investment in what we're doing with regard to roads and water and education. But it'll also be these areas. Are we focused on our grid? Is our grid adequately fortified for the future? Are our technology systems up to the standard globally with these cyber attacks that are coming at us by the thousands every day? Many tens of thousands, frankly. Many of the agencies alone, single agency will get thousands of attacks from a cyber perspective on a monthly basis. So while I'm incredibly excited about all the breakthrough technology that are here, all the opportunities to improve quality of life for the people of Texas and for this nation, I'm also concerned about managing the downside and being eyes wide open to the environment in which we are in today that we find ourselves. And we have to be proactive. We have to lead and talk about all these topics about how we protect the people of Texas and to make sure that the next 100 years are not just as great as the last 100, but are even better. Right. And it will only happen with good leadership and being proactive and engaged on all these fields of human endeavor and every area of public policy.
Well, that is a perfect jumping off point to what is the last question we asked for folks who join us. What is your vision for Texas as it relates to the whole tech ecosystem? And you can pick 5, 10, 15, or 100 years, as you mentioned. But what do you foresee based on the direction we're heading right now? What does Texas look like in the future with tech advancements?
Well, look, Texas needs to be not just the number one economy in the United States. We need to be the number one economy anywhere in the world. That's the standard by which I judge ourselves, right? Today, we're the 8th largest economy in the world. Less than a year from now, 10 months from now, our projections show they'll be the 7th largest economy in the world. And so what does that mean? That means we need to have a diversified economy that does it all. Back in the 80s, we were overly, if you will, structured on oil and gas and energy, which of course is an enormous blessing. Our energy sector has been so fabulous for Texas. We wouldn't have all of our blessings. We wouldn't have the schools and the roads and all that we have in Texas without our great oil and gas sector. We need to unleash the oil and gas sector. We need to bring new technology there so that Texas not only is the energy capital of the world, but that America is truly energy independent again. We got to do all of those things. So the oil and gas sector is enormously important. But now what we've seen in the last 25, 30 years is that technology, our manufacturing sector, our service sector have all grown and matured and developed alongside oil and gas, which makes us a world-class dominant power economically, truly. That's why we're going from number 8 today to number 7, because it's the development of all of those areas that have given that blessing. So when I talk about technology, what am I envisioning? A couple things. One, I think about what I call the Dell effect here in Texas, here in Austin. Michael Dell, an incredible entrepreneur, did a wonderful job here in Austin of creating, obviously, a business literally when he was going to school out of his garage. Because he had such tremendous success, there are today what I call thousands of Dellionaires running around Austin, running around Texas, and probably for that matter around the country, but disproportionately in Texas and certainly here in this part of Texas. And what that did was it created generations of new tech startups, new tech entrepreneurs. And so I want to always be the place in this country and the place in the world where innovation thrives, where common sense thrives, where we have the right regulatory framework, where we do things intelligently, where the next 18-year-old kid that wants to create something that changes the world wants to do it here in Texas. That's my vision for what the next 25, 50, and 100 years bring. And when you have these enormous successes like Dell that create all these Dellionaires, all of the thousands of companies that will be spawned because of that original company's success is enormous. We're going to do that in the next 25 years in biotechnology, in less than that time here in Texas. We're going to do it in financial services with all the financial services technologies in the world and so forth. We're going to do it with regard to data centers. We're going to do it with regard to energy. All of these areas where we'll apply technology to business problems. See, California, they drive a philosophical, crazy vision. They focus on technology for technology's sake and not about business value. As a business person, as a professional investor in my professional career, I want to focus on value first. Then give me the mechanism to achieve that value, which is technology. And so I want to be the place on the planet that shines brightest. You know, if you think about what's happened historically with regard to the Silicon Valley and what it did for investment capital and being the place where all the VCs were in the world to support all these new tech companies, I think it's going to go away. I think the next 20 years, you'll see that here in Texas, even more so. I've always been a driver and a believer in these topics. I'm delighted that we're going to have our own stock exchange here in Texas. You guys have seen that headline. Right. I've been working on that for over a decade. In fact, Representative Capriglione and I have been working on that for over a decade. In that era, I was the chair of financial services in the House. And we talked about creating a financial exchange, right? Creating a commodities exchange that would start with hard metals. We start with gold bullion. And so in 2015, we passed the gold bullion exchange. That was Gio and I working together. I was chairman of the committee. We drafted that bill. We moved it through the same day I heard the bill and raised it through the process because I wanted the future to be around commodities exchanges that Texas could challenge New York, London, Chicago with regard to financial services leadership for the country. That's a technology enabling vision, right? You have to have a business vision first that technology enables. So now that we have that exchange coming to Texas, that will further drive, if you will, capital formation to Texas. We'll have more venture capitalists here. We'll have more private equity people here that are putting capital to work behind great ideas and great people. At the end of the day, you can have the greatest technology in the world, but if you don't have the right people, it's not going to get there. People make all the difference. People are your secret ingredient in any business. They're your secret ingredient in any state agency. They're your key with regard to leadership and the future of the state and the nation. So those are the things that I see going forward, that the foundational economic engine that drives tech innovation will grow rapidly here in every field of human endeavor. Like I talked about, healthcare, financial services, manufacturing, oil and gas. You're going to see all those breakthroughs happen right here in a place we call Texas. Unlike any other place, not just in the United States, but anywhere in the world. That's my perspective.
It's a bright future.
It is.
Very bright. Very bright.
What a positive message for conservatives too. You know, it's easy to be against things, but the affirmative of, hey, BlackRock wants to go woke, let's build something better. Let's show the market case for this. So I'm 100% bought in your vision, Senator.
Well,
let's realize it.
Look, I just fundamentally believe that we need to continue to drive innovation, right?
Yep.
And I think we'll get great partners that will come alongside us. On that topic, actually, BlackRock invested in the stock exchange. I don't know if you saw that, but that they're investing. And I think, not to go another topic, but I really believe fundamentally that what we did years ago with regard to SB 13 was absolutely the right policy for Texas. We absolutely protected Texas and the United States from bad policy on ESG. We did. We absolutely did. And so as a result of that, organizations have changed behavior. I think you're seeing that change behavior because Texas has a bully pulpit and we have to use it. And I think we used it historically successfully the last few years. That should be the model by which we go and address challenges that we see economically. When we see issues that are societal, that are of great concern, we should use our bully pulpit. We should use our economic engine to change policy for the future, not just of Texas, but the future of this country and the future of the world. And I think that's what we're doing collectively in partnership. And we're seeing dramatically improved behavior, in my assessment, and what we're seeing with regard to those topics.
Yeah.
So that's exciting.
Yeah.
Those are wins for Texas. And so that's why I'm so bullish that our future is incredibly bright, incredibly bright.
Amen. Well, Senator Parker, thank you for generosity of time and joining us here today.
Thank you.
No, thank you. Thank you guys for taking the time to care about the issues and to want to engage and talk about all things technology and what's going on here economically. But I want people back at home to understand that no place in this country will take this policy more seriously. And nowhere will we take a focus not just on good tech policy, but something that goes hand in hand with growing our economy and being responsible with regard to limited government and free enterprise and maximizing liberties and freedoms for our citizens. That's what it's all about. That's why people are coming here from California like yourselves, right? Is they want to be in the land of freedom and opportunity. And we've got to make sure that's the case in technology and, like I said earlier, in every field of human endeavor. So I appreciate you taking the time to care about the story and cover it today.
Absolutely. Let our listeners know, you know the drill, texaspolicy.com for all information, research, op-eds, videos, you name it on technology policy. We'll keep you informed in the loop and all the things happening with tech. So once again, finally, Senator, so great to have you.
Hey, what an honor to be with all of you. Thanks for what you're doing. God bless. Good to see you all.